Really? Couldn't have called it Amityville Back Massager or something? And now it's on my shelf. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we go through all the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a pretty good overview of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus. Basically, we look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series. This is where I take a recommendation from you guys, a horror movie that I've never seen before that you leave in the comments to one of my videos, and I check it out for the first time, going blind, and then I let you know, is it syllabus-worthy? Is there anything about it that's interesting, noteworthy, good enough to make it onto the horror movie syllabus? And today, what we're looking at is Amityville Vibrator. And Amityville Vibrator was recommended to us by the Wee Nerds, and we have gotten some really interesting recommendations from the Wee Nerds before. We looked at Ghost Shark and Bloody Bloody Bible Camp and Wood Chipper Massacre, and I'm going to be honest with you, all of these movies have their rough edges. Like Mr. Meathook of the Wee Nerds is notorious for loving bad horror movies, schlocky, cheesy, cheap, low-budget horror. So when you get a recommendation from the Wee Nerds from Mr. Meathook, you kind of know what you're in for. And in this case, with a title like Amityville Vibrator, I think we know what we're in for, right? Like I saw when the recommendation came in, I was just like, uh-oh, we're going to have to do it. But wow. And, here's the thing, though. The recommendations from the Wee Nerds in the past have actually wound up being a lot of fun. Ghost Shark, I really enjoyed. Bloody Bloody Bible Camp was great. Witch of a Massacre, a little less good, but still worth watching. And so I have a little bit of faith in the Wee Nerds and the recommendation. That said, Amityville Vibrator, right off the bat, you know where you're going with this, and so I'm buckling up for a rough watch when I put this on, because I have a pretty good idea from that title of what to expect, what I'm gonna get, and yeah, well, did I love it? Did I hate it? Well, let's find out. Like I said, the movie that we're looking at today is Amityville Vibrator. Amityville Vibrator came out in 2020 and was directed by someone named Nathan Rumler, who I'm not familiar with, but when I look at his filmography, he's directed movies like Fang Boner and Gay for Prey. So right off the bat, I can kind of get an idea of what he's about and what his shtick is from the titles of his movies, including this one. You get the idea he's in for some schlocky, offensive, and kind of sexually charged or sexually taboo type movies. And hey, that's fine. I'm a grown up. I can handle it. But could I handle this one? Well, let's go ahead and get into it. If you haven't seen it before, the movie is about a sex toy that is cursed with the Amityville curse. It has the Amityville curse in there where bad things befall the owner who possesses this item. And this item in particular winds up in the hands of a young woman who does wind up using the item. And of course, hijinks start to abound. There are kinds of weird, occult, strange happenings, supernatural happenings. A creepy dummy shows up at some point, and a lot of weird things happening. Meanwhile, there are these 2 researchers who are looking for all the items and trying to get them into safe hands so as to kind of stop the curse from spreading. And will they get there in time before things go really off the rails? Well, no, because things go off the rails pretty much almost immediately in this movie, but I'll stop so as to not spoil it. But really, you're not exactly here for plot. This movie is essentially a softcore pornography movie meets comedy meets the low-budget Amityville unlicensed franchise movies. That's what it is, which isn't necessarily the dumbest idea in the world, frankly. The movie is trash, but it knows that it is trash. It is sleazy is the word that Mr. Meathook used in his review, which I did watch after watching this movie, and I'll leave the link to his review in the description because it's worth watching. I think he gives you a pretty good sense or idea of what to expect when you're watching this movie. But again, I kind of think from the title I think the title's telling you right off the bat what you're in for, and you get it. What you might be curious about is, well, just how edgy is it? Just how porny is it? And the answer is a pretty fair amount, frankly. Not to crib off of Austin Powers too much, but it's got a lot of vagina in it. A lot of vagina. Like there is a lot of close-ups of penetration, things like that. That is like masturbation stuff and things like that. It's not super hardcore porn, but it's not softcore porn either. Medium core porn. I don't know. It's explicit. You see a lot of explicit stuff. There's a lot of nudity, a lot of sexual stuff. It's about a sex toy that's cursed, so you get an idea. Again, the title's telling you right off the bat what you're getting, and so that is in fact what you are getting. You are getting these alt looking or suicide girl looking women who are naked a lot and have random sex with each other and stuff, and use their sex toys, and it really isn't much of a plot. The plot is paper thin, just trying to find this cursed object before it causes any more havoc. And it's really an excuse to show sex stuff and to show jokes. And that is actually where it kind of works, because the script is kind of funny. Like it's trying kind of hard, and some of the jokes fall very, very flat. But one of the things it did do that I really liked was it has all of these kind of cheeky references to other Amityville movies, all these other like B-level, non-official, unlicensed Amityville movies. And it's if you're into the Amityville franchise, it's kind of cute to see them work in these titles and stuff like that in ways that get increasingly more clunky and awkward and hard to sell. And they kind of know that. Again, it knows that it's trashy. It knows that it's dumb. It knows that it's not a very good movie. And it's just kind of leaning into that. It's just kind of embracing the fact that it's not very good. And then it goes into, a sex scene or something like that, a lot of lesbian porn scenes in here. The movie does have a bit of a feel of people who have seen porn trying to make a porn movie and not doing a very good job of it. And that's what it feels like. There's, a nun shows up, for example, there's a random guy who shows up, and it feels like porn stuff. The only thing missing is like a step relative, I guess it could have been a step nun or something like that. But there's like porn tropes in there, but it's not full blown porn because it is still trying to be a horror movie. But where it really does fall short is in budget, frankly. Like the production values of this movie are bad. Everything is bad in this movie, but a large part of it is because it's a cheap homemade movie, basically, by somebody who just wants to make a movie. And I'm a little more forgiving to these kind of DIY, do-it-yourself type movies, and this is clearly pretty much a DIY movie, but it's got a lot of spirit. It's got a lot of heart in it. Like, for example, there are a lot of scenes that are lit very interestingly, with like a really strong primary color, like a green or a red or something like that. And it doesn't look good. It's bad. It's bad lighting. But it looks like it's an attempt to be a little stylish or do something a little bit interesting visually. It's just not really succeeding. There's not the talent or money behind it to actually do that. And then like the camera work and some like the zooms and stuff like that are very amateurish. They're just very basic or trying to be kind of stylish or interesting or clever, and they really kind of fall flat and just want to be a little distracting. The sound is bad, predictably, as with so many homemade or do-it-yourself movies. It's bad sound, so you can't hear the dialogue very well. And it's not good at dialogue. The dialogue is pretty bad, but it is funny and sometimes intentionally so. And the acting is horrendous. It's really bad. Like I said, I think these women were hired because they were willing to do nudity and sex on camera, more so than for their ability to actually act, because the acting is across the board pretty bad. There's like one guy who's like having a yard sale, which is where the cursed vibrator comes from. He's pretty funny. He kind of understood what he was doing, and he's actually probably the best part of the movie, but it's a small part, and the leads of the movie are really, they're not very good actors, but they are good at taking off their clothes and having sex. And so that is obviously part of what is going on. The plot is very underbaked. The script is very, very thin, but it's just trying to make fun of Amityville movies. And I think it's doing a pretty good job of that. Admittedly, the Amityville jokes do wear thin at some point, and you can see the strings in the movie. Like, I mean, quite literally, you can see the strings. Like when the vibrator's flying around, you can see the strings on it, right? Like there's a dummy that I think I mentioned earlier that winds up getting involved and winds up attacking, stuff like that. And it looks kind of silly and everything like that. You can see the strings on that too, but it's cheap. It looks cheap. It's obviously cheap. It's obviously low budget, low bid, but there's a charm to it that I kind of respect. I kind of have a little bit of a soft spot for. So I'm not really trying to hate on it so much for that. I'm just, it's a fact. It doesn't look good. The acting's not good. The writing's not good. The lighting's not good. The camera work's not good. Nothing about it from a technical standpoint is good, but it's trying really, really hard. They want to do good on it. Where it actually does deserve a little credit and get a little bit of good in there is the gore. The gore effects, the gore images are pretty good. There's like some gory stuff, and there's like some like sacrilegious imagery and stuff like that. It's pretty decent. It's not amazing. It's not like, you know, David Cronenberg level or anything like that, but there are some surprisingly gory effects in here that actually work for me fairly well and kind of stand out a little bit because the rest of the movie looks so low budget that it's not bad. It's not bad stuff. And it's a surprise, a pleasant surprise, because it does add a little bit of something to the movie. Like, you've got this dummy and he's kind of silly looking, the way he's moving and the way that they're manipulating him. It's kind of obvious and like that, but he also is kind of creepy. And when he's killing somebody, it's kind of creepy. It's kind of unsettling. And that's one of the things I think that by having the gore and violence in this work kind of well, it adds this thing to the movie where you've mixed this gore and stuff with this eroticism throughout the movie. And that's a little unsettling. It's a little bit of a weird vibe, right? Like, you have this porny type movie that is now doing like straight up horror gore stuff. It's a weird kind of juxtaposition, at least for me. I know some people might be down for that. That's not my vibe. That's not really what I'm looking for. But it made for a little bit of an uncomfortableness in the movie that honestly hadn't really earned, but it made it for an interesting experience. Like, this movie actually started to kind of work in the third act a little bit the plot wasn't really there, but in terms of like a horror movie rather than just like a porn comedy, it really kind of started to work a little bit, not amazingly. And it still never stopped trying to be funny and sometimes succeeding and sometimes failing miserably. But it really wound up being a little bit more of a surprise. I thought this was going to be painful, and it didn't wind up being painful. It wound up being interesting. It wound up being something to kind of look at almost clinically, because watching it from the channel, so there's always a little bit of a clinical look to it, a bit of a critical look to it. But it wound up making me kind of go, this was a little bit more than what I expected it to be. But was it more enough to make it on the syllabus? Let's find out. So, is Amityville Vibrator syllabus worthy? Of course not. No, absolutely not. Like, it's not even really trying to be good. I don't even think it has aspirations of being a good movie. I think it's just trying to have some fun, and it's trying to, make a little bit of a buck off the Amityville name, and also kind of, poke fun at the Amityville non-licensed movies, which is, yeah, honestly kind of a fun thing, really. But the movie doesn't have enough of a reputation or enough notoriety to get on the syllabus that way. It's not a quality movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's not, again, not even trying to be, and it doesn't have that kind of noteworthiness or reputation to get on the syllabus from that aspect of it. The only thing it's really got going for it in that regard is a really captivating name. Like, it's a name that tells you exactly what to expect, and it's funny on its face. Like, just hearing Amityville Vibrator, if you're familiar with all the Amityville movies, that's pretty funny. It's one of the funniest names they've ever come up with for one of those movies, and that isn't quite enough to get it on the syllabus, but that's probably the most noteworthy thing about the movie. All that said, it kind of won me over. Like, the movie committed to the bit. It was trying to make fun of Amityville movies while also doing softcore or medium core porn, and the humor actually worked. Like I said, it was try hard. It was very much like putting so much effort into making it funny that you could see the sweat on the brow, so to speak. Like, you could just feel them straining to make it funny. But while they maybe only landed a percentage of the jokes and things like that, it was enough to keep it funny and engaging for me. And like, it's worth noting, this movie's barely over an hour long, so it never overstayed its welcome. Like, it never got so tedious or trying so hard to be funny and failing that I just like started looking at my watch and couldn't wait to get out of there. It was a short ride, so it had enough comedy in it for me to keep me engaged and keep me having a good time until it ended. So it won me over. I did not have a bad time watching this movie. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's a little awkward to watch this movie. Like this is, movies like this, these kind of so bad it's good kind of movies, or are fun to watch in a crowd with people and like, kind of clown on them and make fun of them, whatever, kind of like a mystery science theater kind of thing. This is not one of those, right? This is one that I feel like I would feel really awkward and uncomfortable watching this in a group of people because there's so much the porn aspect of it. It's a super dumb movie. It's reveling in how dumb it is, but it's also trying to kind of go there and be taboo. And I do think it is succeeding in some of the taboo stuff, in terms of like, porn type stuff and some of the gore type stuff, and then kind of the juxtaposition of the two. I do think it works in that sense. But in terms of watching it with a group of people, like it's sleazy. Like, Mr. Meat Hook called it sleazy in his review, and it's dead on. It's the right word for it. And again, that review, it really, if you want to get a good idea of what this movie is about, what's going to happen and stuff like that, that's a pretty good review to watch. And so again, I'll leave the link below. But it really is a sleazy movie. And kind of like, it's weird because I don't want to watch it with other people, but it felt weird to watch it by myself too. So, it's an awkward feel in that regard, and an awkward watch. But it wasn't a bad watch by any stretch of the imagination. Like, did it quite meet the standards of like something like Ghost Shark? No, Ghost Shark was way more fun, way better. But even Bloody Bloody Biocamp was better than this. But it might be better than Wood Chipper Massacre, though. It might be better than Wood Chipper Massacre. But you've got an idea from this review what you're getting yourself into. So like, that's going to do it for our exploration into Amityville Vibrator. We're going to stop there. But like I said, you know what you're getting yourself into. I've talked about it. Mr. Meat Hook's review will give you a better exploration into it. But the title alone should warn you. You've been warned. Amityville Vibrator. It ain't for everybody. It's hardly for anybody. But weirdly, it was for me. And if it was for you, let me know in the comments. And now it's time to answer a horror trivia pursuit question. I'm going to take a card here and read it right here on camera live. And hopefully I will answer it correctly and not embarrass myself. But you'll be able to tell if I don't get it right. And since Amityville Vibrator actually had some decent gore in there, let's go with the gore category on the card. And the question is this. The leader of the Skinheads in 2015's Green Room is played by what former Star Trek actor? I definitely 100% know the answer to this question. And if you've seen Green Room, you probably do too. You don't even necessarily have to be a Star Trek fan to know the answer to this question if you've seen Green Room, or even if you're familiar with it. If you're familiar with Green Room, you probably heard that this person is in the movie. But if you haven't seen Green Room, if you're not familiar with it, maybe you have no idea whatsoever. And they didn't do multiple choice here, and I'm glad about that because I don't think it needs multiple choice. I like this movie very, very much. I think it's very good. We did talk about it on the channel. Excellent movie. And the performance by this actor is outstanding. Now, what's interesting about this is technically this movie has two leads, and they're both former Star Trek actors. So that's the interesting thing about this. But one of them is the leader of the Skinhead gang, and one of them is not. And the guy was going to say might be confused by which one they're looking for, except they tell us they're looking for the Skinhead leader as the former Star Trek actor, and not the other actor, the protagonist, who is also a former Star Trek actor. So I don't know if that's really a clue, if I'm just making it more convoluted for you, frankly. But like I said, if you've seen the movie, or if you're familiar with the movie, you probably know the answer to this already. And like I said, if you haven't seen it, you're going to be taking a guess, and you're going to be at a severe disadvantage. But you should check out the movie. It's really good. It's a little bit of a tough watch. It's a pretty intense movie, but it's excellent. It's really, really good. So that's my thoughts on that. But go ahead and lock in your answer, because I'm about to give my answer, and I am definitely going to be right on this one. But lock it in. Okay. My answer is, of course, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart is the lead in the movie, and the card says, Patrick Stewart. He played Captain Jean-Luc Picard in the Star Trek Next Generation era of the franchise. And yeah, Captain Picard, he was the lead skinhead, and that was kind of the buzz on this, was he gives this amazing performance. It's against type. He is not known for stuff like this, right? He's known as Captain Picard and Gurney from Dune and stuff like that. So it's a very different role for him, and he crushed it. And Anton Yelchin, who is the other Star Trek actor who played Chekhov in the newer movies, the J.J. Abrams movies, he is the lead protagonist in the movie. He is, the adversary of Patrick Stewart in the movie. So two Star Trek actors, excellent movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it before, and let me know if you got it right. If you didn't get it right, let me know who you guessed. And if you guessed Anton Yelchin, that's pretty amazing and impressive. but I warned you not to do that. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. Like I said, this one's kind of an awkward one. Let me know if you've seen Amityville Vibrator, I guess, if you want to talk to me about that, tell me about that. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and cut this off here, but go ahead and let me know if you've got other recommendations for me to check out. It doesn't have to be any Amityville movies. In fact, prefer that it's not, frankly. But let me know if you've got movies for me to check out in the comments below. The recommendations have been really, really good. I appreciate them. And until next week when we do something completely different, I'm just going to say, class dismissed. Lorenza prefers last Amityville movie.